Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to look at the first of my two Christmas Day 2020 beer reviews, and I think I've got two very interesting beers to look at for these ones, and I sincerely hope that you guys enjoy them, and I also wish you a very Merry Christmas with friends and family, and hopefully very soon this whole COVID-19 rubbish just buggers off. But for this review we are going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel before, and they do some very interesting beers in my experience. They've built a really good reputation for themselves over the last 18 months, 2 years, and it is thoroughly deserved in my experience. So for this one then, we are going to return to the wonderful Vault City Brewing for the fourth time, if memory serves me correctly, and we're going to have a look at the Double Crust Raspberry Pie. So this one comes in at 9% ABV, so I guess that makes it an Imperial sour. I'm not sure whether it will be like a pastry sour or exactly what it will be, but as I've told you before, a lot of our desserts in Scotland are based on berries like raspberries and strawberries and brambles and things like this actually. So yeah, this one I think should make for a very interesting review. This one's very highly rated as well on Untappd and Rate Beer and things like that, and it was one that just kind of caught my eye actually. I really do enjoy a raspberry sour, so when I saw this one I thought, you know, I just have to have a go at this. But this will be the strongest beer that I've had from these guys thus far, and hopefully it is as good as the ones that we've had before this. So the other beers that I've reviewed from these guys before was the first one was one of the sour IPAs. I think that was the SIPA version 1. We had the Iron Brew, which was really nice actually, and then the last one that we had through Systembolaget in Sweden was the Farm to Fermenter Blueberry, if I remember rightly. But all three of those beers were really top class actually, so I do have high hopes for this one, I have to say. And yeah, it's definitely nice to have these guys here on the channel for you once again. This will be the first of 3 Vault City beers that you'll see in this cycle of Scottish beer reviews here on Rampant Lion Reviews. So yeah, quite a few things to look forward to actually, and I'm certainly very curious to see how all 3 of these beers turn out. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Vault City Brewing before, and like I said, you will see more from these guys in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly at the moment because I am back home in the motherland for a little while. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Vault City Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've told you before, Vault City Brewing were originally based in Edinburgh, the capital city in the southeast of Scotland, and they were founded back in 2018 by Johnny Horn, Adele Wilkie and Stephen Smith Hay. So Johnny worked at the Hanging Bat in the city, which is a brew pub and somewhere that I do recommend that you check out. I want to go and film an out and about video there. The last time I was there though, they didn't have any of their own beers because they had a tap takeover, so I didn't do it. But yeah, we will do something there later on. But yeah, Johnny worked at the Hanging Bat, and Stephen and Adele were regular customers there, and they all just became friends over time. So Johnny was studying at the time, and he was also a keen homebrewer, as was Stephen, and this was one of the things that really just helped build their friendship. But the two began planning a brewery together, and Adele contributed a lot of the ideas and then eventually joined in fully. So Johnny was a great fan of the Belgian lambics and sours, and this really rubbed off on Adele and Stephen, and they felt that at this time there was a gap in the Scottish beer scene for this, and this was the route that they decided to take with their own brewery. So initially they didn't think so much about the money and the investment side of things. things, so they just kind of got on with setting up what they called a glorified home brewing kit as their brewery in Stephen and Adele's kitchen, and they began brewing weekly back in July of 2018. Over the last little while though, they've been attending lots of different beer festivals across Europe and just trying to get the word out a little bit more about their beers, and they've been very successful in this actually. These guys are, these guys are the first Scottish sour beer brewery, I guess you could say. Of course, these days there is the Brewdog Overworks as well, but Vault City really did kind of take that title as being Scotland's first dedicated sour beer brewery. But as of December 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced over 70 different kinds of beer, and that is growing, and they're brewing their beers at 71 Brewing in Dundee, in Tayside. In Scotland, of course. So yeah, they've been able to kind of upgrade their capacity quite a lot since they've been there, and I'm not sure if that will be the permanent home for them, but in the meantime it is a very, very good place for them, I have to say, and they are getting their beers out there and across Europe actually, which is quite nice. Like I said to you earlier, we were able to get one of their beers through Systembolaget in Sweden, and you can get them through the likes of Glassbank and Kiosk actually, some of the different web shops in Scandinavia, so that's always good. I can get a hold of these beers with a little bit more of a price tag on them, of course, compared to here in Scotland, but yeah, it's always a nice treat now and again, of course. But yeah, there's not much more, there's not much else I guess we can say about this brewery other than to tell you about the name. So this brewery takes its name from the Edinburgh vaults, or Southside vaults as they're also known, which were built into the arches of the Southside Bridge in the Old Town in Edinburgh, and these things were home to like taverns and workshops and little artisans and things like this actually. So that's where the name Vault City comes from, and you can go and have a little look at those if you find yourself in Edinburgh. So yeah, that's, as I say, all we can say about Vault City Brewing for the moment. I guess the next stage for these guys would be to open up their own bar somewhere in Edinburgh or something like this, so that is definitely something I would be interested in having a look at sometime in the future. But hopefully once the whole COVID-19 thing buggers off, I can see about arranging an interview with the guys from Vault City Brewing. That would definitely be a really cool thing to do here on the channel at some future date. So yeah, maybe the next time I'm home, or I'm planning to be home in February and then again in September, maybe at some stage around then we can get an interview arranged with these guys. That would be awesome. So fingers crossed we can do that, COVID permitting. But yeah, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. There you can see the Vault City Brewing symbol on the front, double crust raspberry pie, 9% sour beer, or I guess we should say Imperial sour. It tells you a little bit about the beer on the back here. So it says, the double crust raspberry pie. Ever feel like you can't have your pastry treat and drink it? We've taken direct inspiration from the culinary world for this modern sour beer. A big biscuity base and a fruity filling so jammy it's juicy, layering complex malt and squeezing in as many raspberries as we could for the fullest, richest pudding we could muster. Decadent and delightful, mixed culture tartness and sharp fruit flavour balance the sweet, pastry-like malt elements. So I guess this one probably will be a pastry sour actually. But you can see Vault City Brewing do have their own bottle caps on the beers, which is nice for a brewery so young. Like I said, these guys are about 2.5 years old at this point in time, July 2018 that they started brewing weekly. So yeah, I think this is pretty awesome actually. But yeah, 2.5 years old, and they are making a hell of a name for themselves. So yeah, definitely look forward to seeing more of these guys over in Scandinavia. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Curious to see what this one has in store for us. Yep, there we go. Yes, there we are. So, you can see a little bit of smoke on the opening there as we open this one up. This is a 375ml bottle, and we'll get it out and into the glass. I'm just going to say straight away, this looks absolutely beautiful. You always get some really interesting colours out of these sour beers, and Vault City are of course going to give you that. So we'll see about getting a little bit more head on this. A little bit there, a wee bit more of an aggressive pour, and there we go. So yeah, No sediment in this one as well either. That's interesting. Ooh, and it does smell. Almost smells a wee bit chocolatey when you smell the bottle actually. So I'm sure we're in for an interesting aroma out of this one. But yeah, this should be pretty interesting. I mean, just straight away, look at the colour of this one. This is almost the same as the kind of... Is it a little bit brighter? I have been told off by some of my Scottish viewers, particularly Big G from Sunnyleith, about comparing some of the colours of these beers to the Heart of Midlothian football shirt. But since these guys are from Edinburgh, I think it might be appropriate. This is just like a kind of... It's almost a little bit like a very bright Heart of Midlothian football shirt, but yeah, it's not too far away from the colours that you get on the glass there, but it's a nice kind of pinky, sort of purpley colour actually. If I was an artist, I'm sure I could describe the colour of this beer for you a little bit better. But you can see that this beer poured with about a third of a finger of a frothy, kind of pinkish tinted head. That's fading away to be a very sort of thin foamy layer now, but it has left a fairly substantial kind of thicker foamy ring around the edge of the glass there. But it certainly does look very nice. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head, and you can see little bits of sediment just kind of floating around in this one actually. So yeah, in terms of a sour beer, it certainly looks the part. If we shine the light through this one is pretty damn hazy, but it tells you on the back here that it's got wheat and oats in it, and of course they tend to be the things that are responsible for the haziness in a lot of these kind of modern sour beers today, and also the New England IPAs and stuff like this, and the Hefeweizen of course, and wit beers and stuff would be other examples of that. But yeah, it certainly looks the part for one of these big sour beers. The level of haze on this one is pretty impressive, but then when it's 9% ABV, you're going to have a hell of a lot of oats in it, and you're also going to have a hell of a lot of wheat and raspberry. So that is all of those variables are going to contribute to the level of opacity that you get in this beer. But yeah, it certainly looks the part. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Ooh, that smells crazy. And now, it's interesting with this one. It is kind of what I would have expected, but the thing that really gets me about this is that the aroma almost comes across as being a little bit dry in some ways. The malty side of this beer comes across as being a little bit dry, and it's almost like floury dry, or almost a little bit like chocolate powdery dry. I can't quite put my finger on it. There is a little bit of a... There is almost just a little bit of a kind of chocolatey, powdery sort of thing to this. But of course you've got that big sweet pastry sort of thing in there as well. So this, yeah, definitely this one is an Imperial pastry sour. There's no doubt in my mind about this. And this is all the rage these days. I mean, in Sweden we've got, you know, Duck Pond, Morgendagens, various other breweries producing these big sweet pastry sours. One thing I would like to see actually from Vault City would be like a traditional Flanders Red. I think that would be really interesting. They probably have done it and I've missed it, but I would love to see these guys do, you know, like Rodenbach style or Duchesse de Bourgogne style Flanders Red. I would love to see them have a go at something kind of traditional like that. And the other sour I want to get from these guys is the Tabery sour, but I think everywhere that I saw was sold out of this one. But yeah, this one for me is really, really interesting. You've got that big kind of just... It feels like kind of cliche to say pastry, but that really is what it smells like. It smells like a very kind of floury pastry, but also it's got a little bit of an almost powdery, chocolatey type thing to it. It's really unusual in that sense. You do get, for me, there is a wee bit of vanilla coming out of this one. There's not vanilla added into the brew right enough, I should say that. So there's not a vanilla component to this one, but it's really got that kind of pastry edge to it actually, which I think is very, very interesting. So yeah, kind of just pastry crust, like a sort of fruit pie edge sort of thing, but very floury for me. A little bit of a kind of chocolatey edge to it in my experience. But yeah, there's not much else I think we can kind of say about this one. But as I've told you in previous reviews, I always find these big sours to be very straight shooting in terms of their flavour and aroma. And that's one of the things that's very attractive about them. You're not going to get too much in the way of complexity out of these beers. in terms of flavour and aroma, but it's more the fact that they are just really well crafted and the flavours just come out very nicely. The sour beers for me are all about the transition of flavour from being sour to being lovely and smooth and kind of sweet, if you like. But yeah, there's not much else that you can say about the malty base in this one other than it's like, you know, pastry-ish. There's a little bit of a flour, chocolatey kind of dryness to it. It's got a wee bit of vanilla, and it's got, you know, you can smell a little touch of the kind of wheaty, white bready sort of thing in this, but the oats are definitely smoothing this one out. This beer, I don't think, does it say on the side? No. Oh, it does actually. It has hops in it. It does have hops in it, this one. I was going to say I didn't think this one had hops in it, but one of the things you often get with these big kind of sour beers is quite a few breweries don't use hops in them, but what they usually do with these, if they do, is they use older hops that aren't going to take away from the sourness of the beer, and it will usually be, you know, a Hallertau or a Tettnanger or like a Belgian equivalent of these kind of hops. So yeah, sour beers tend to use slightly older hops, but you do get a little bit of earthiness out of this one. You get a wee touch of floral character there and a little bit of grassiness, but as you would expect, the hops are not one of the kind of more prominent components of the aroma in this beer. So yeah, just worth bearing that in mind. I think, you know, the thing that dominates for me is that sort of dry, floury, chocolatey kind of thing that's going on in the middle of the palate. And I'm just surprised to get chocolate out of this beer, but that really comes out to me. In terms of the fruity side of things, then, of course, it's a big juicy raspberry character, but you could be forgiven for thinking there's other things in here, like maybe a little bit of a kind of slightly juicy fig, a little bit of a kind of red currant or something like that, you know, candied strawberries. It's really got a little bit of that sort of vibe to it. I mean, this beer is not tart in its aroma. You don't really get such a sharpness out of the raspberries. It really gives you more of a kind of juicy character, and then within that you've got a few things like, you know, currants, a little bit of a figgy note almost, and then some of these kind of juicy candied strawberries. So yeah, this is a very quirky aroma. The thing that really gets me about this is that powdery, flibbery chocolate thing, as I said, but the other elements that it has are not overly different compared to other sort of pastry sours that I've had recently. The other one that springs to mind when I smell this aroma would be the Malt Garden beer from Poland that I had recently, the Can't Wait to Eat You. This beer does remind me to that, obviously, but just with a different fruit in it, if you like. So yeah, take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck in, but we're going to have a taste of this one now. So this one is the Double Crust Raspberry Pie, a 9% Imperial pastry sour from Vault City Brewing, originally from Edinburgh, but now brewing their beers up in Dundee here in Scotland. So yeah, let's get stuck into this one. Merry Christmas 2020. Make sure that you stay safe and have good times with friends and family as much as you can. But here we go. Merry Christmas, guys, and thank you for your support over 2020. Slàinte, skål. Oh yeah, that's a very, very nice beer. Going to say that straight away with this one. I'm not surprised, you know. I've had beers, this is my 4th beer from Vault City now, and they've all been very good. The Iron Brew, there was the Iron Brew, the Sour IPA version 1, the Farm to Fermenter Blueberry. They were all good, and this one again is very, very nice, but it is very, very quirky. I'm not sure in a sense how I feel about pastry sours. It's the malty base. I don't know. Maybe to be honest, I would probably say that I prefer Berliner Weisses and Goses and things to these. I'm not sure how I feel about the malty side of these big pastry sours, but I have to say this one is a very, very well done beer, actually. The thing that maybe puts me off the kind of pastry sours a little bit is the aftertaste that you get from them. Because I think the Malt Garden one had a little bit of the same thing that this beer has. It's got a wee bit of a kind of almost dryness in the aftertaste, whereas I want a big smoothness and kind of sweetness and things out of these sort of sweet sours, if you like. So yeah, it's an interesting point to make, but I will say this is a top quality beer. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So yeah, thumbs up to Vault City once again for this. They've done an awesome job here. So yeah, where do we start with this one then? So obviously the quirky part about this beer for me is the malt base. I've not reviewed too many beers that have been explicitly called pastry sours on the channel before, and this beer, I think it definitely, that sort of dryness that the beer has, it does sweeten up the more and more that you drink of this one. But the one thing I would say about this beer too is that it does reflect the aroma, really accurately. It comes across in the flavour in a very similar way to what you would expect from the aroma. But yeah, straight away with this beer you can feel that sort of pastry, crusty sort of thing just blanket in the middle of your tongue. Underneath that though, you do get a bit of the smoothness from the oats, and you can particularly in the middle third of your palate, you can feel the oats forming the backbone of that beer there, and they do help the middle of your palate just sweeten up a little bit the further that you go into the aftertaste. But when you go onto the back third of your palate, you definitely get a little bit more of the kind of wheaty character coming out of it. There is a little touch of bitiness to the wheat at the very, very back of the palate, but then, as I say, in that middle third and the back third of your tongue, the sort of crusty and slightly drier pastry qualities just kind of sit on top of that. And in that border region between the middle third and back third of your palate, that's where you get some of these drier elements out of the beer that I was talking about. It's almost a little, it's strange that it's just almost a little bit chocolatey in terms of its flavour, and it's almost a little bit, as I say, it's almost got a little bit of that kind of floury, powdery sort of thing about it. It's a very difficult flavour to describe actually, but yeah, mixture of chocolatey. I wouldn't describe it as like cinnamon and things like that, but it's just got a wee bit of an almost kind of spicy sort of note to it, which is quite interesting. So yeah, the whole sort of vibe of this beer for me and the malty side of things is very, very interesting. But the more that you drink of it, the more it smoothens out, the more oaty smoothness you get out of this beer in the middle of your palate, like I said. And I just think that overall it is, very, very nicely done in that sense. It does grow on me. I think this is maybe one of these flavours that I have to get used to, because remember, back when I first started the channel, I did not like sour beers. It really took me a while to get the whole idea of what a sour beer was, and now I really like them. I really like them. But this one for me is definitely one of the drier and less sweet sours that I've had from Vault City Brewing so far. I mean, the Farm to Fermenter, I think that had a little bit of a kind of graininess and stuff to it if I remember rightly, but the Iron Brew and the Sour IPA, Sour IPA was obviously a little bit more kind of hoppy and things, but the Iron Brew was a very sweet beer actually. This one's definitely one of the driest of the four that I've reviewed for you so far, so I'm curious to see how the other two that I have lined up for you turn out actually. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. So I think we don't really need to say much more about the malt base in this one, other than the fact that in that that middle third of your palate, the front of that middle third of your palate, you do get a wee bit of an almost vanilla type quality coming out of this one, a little bit of an almost cream vanilla sort of thing coming out of the beer there, and it really does sweeten up and become more oaty in that middle part of your palate. It's the border region between the middle third and the back third of your palate that has that dryness that I'm talking about. But on the hoppy side of the beer then, back corners of the palate, you do have a little bit of earthiness in there. As I say, I think they use older hops in these sort of beers, but as you move, pardon me, further forward on this one, it does get a little bit of herbal, and then as you reach the front kind of corners of the palate, you get a little bit of floral aromaticity about this one, but then you start to get a wee bit more of a kind of, you can feel it's a little bit of a darker kind of floral thing, so again, that would potentially indicate, more, how would you say, it would potentially indicate an older hop variety, an older hop that's been used in this one. But yeah, round the front curve of the palate, there's definitely a little bit of a lighter grassiness in there. And then yeah, I think that covers the hoppy side of the beer pretty nicely. So let's focus on the kind of impact and the transition that this one makes in terms of its tartness and fruits and things like this. So yeah, I wouldn't say that this beer is one of the most tart beers that I've come across before. I don't know if you can say tartest in English, that's probably a bad word. But yeah, I don't know if this is one of the more kind of tart beers that you would come across in terms of the sour world, if you like. but it certainly has a wee bit of tartness when you take it in, but I find the tartness very kind of juicy and quite well rounded in a sense. This beer really does taste as if it's pure raspberry. Some breweries, some sour beer breweries like to put just a little bit of flavour essence in there, just a very small amount to kind of round the flavour out, but you can tell with this one, this beer really has that sort of raw, kind of brambly type quality to it. You just get a wee bit of a slight earthiness almost to the fruits in the beers, where it is just pure fruit, and you get that straight away with this one. So you can feel that underneath that front third of your palate where all these fruity qualities come out, there is just a slight earthiness in there, and that's what tells you that these fruits are fresh actually. But yeah, when you take the beer in, you can feel that the raspberry tartness just impacting behind the very front part of your palate, and then it just rolls back slightly further back. But you'll get flavours evolving out of this one. You know, like I said, you get a wee touch of a candied strawberry to this one. There's a bit of an almost figgy quality to it. You know, it's a very juicy raspberry, like I said, but you will get a few elements of kind of currants coming out of this one. You get a wee bit, you do get a little bit of, yeah, as I say, you do get a little bit of a sort of, you do just get a little bit of kind of the dryness underneath there, but yeah, a little bit of a figgy quality, a little bit of a kind of candied strawberry for me, but yeah, it's raspberries all the way. And it's quite interesting because it's almost quite a sort of dark raspberry in a lot of ways because of that kind of powdery, chocolatey, earthy kind of thing that's going on underneath the fruity front third of your palate there. But yeah, some of the tartness does linger there into the aftertaste. But yeah, the further you go into the aftertaste with this one, you get you do get more of the kind of pastry qualities coming out of this beer. The whole middle of your palate dries up a little bit, but some of the sweetness comes out as well, and it's that chocolatey, powdery sort of thing that just lingers there. I can't put my finger on that. I'd love to talk to these guys and sort of know exactly what that is that's giving it that that flavour. But yeah, that sort of dry, chocolatey, powdery, pastry type thing. So I don't know if you could describe it as a sort of burnt pastry in a sense. It's almost a little bit like that. Yeah, maybe that is a good description of the flavour in this one. This is a beer that certainly just interests me from the sheer quirkiness that it has, and it is very different to a lot of other things that I've had before. And I'm still, I would say that I'm still not sure about these pastry sours. I think I'm more into the Berliner Weisses and the Goses than I am these kind of explicit pastry sours, if you like. But maybe again it's something that I just need to get a little bit more used to. But it's a beautifully executed beer, this one, of that there is no doubt, and those of you that like pastry sours are going to enjoy this one. I like this beer, I guess, for the raspberries. I think I like the raspberry and the kind of vanilla sort of creamy element that this beer has. I think that's what really pushes this one over the line for me actually. I think that's what I really like about it. But yeah, this is one of the stronger sour beers I think that I've ever reviewed for you on the channel, come to think of it, and it has turned out very nicely. So yeah, I need to explore this pastry sour style a bit more. I would definitely say that on this. So take this review with a bit of a pinch of salt if you like. But again, it's another awesome beer from Vault City, no questions about that. In terms of the mouthfeel then, and it's beautiful in the beginning, this beer. Everything goes together really nice. I think it's the aftertaste for me that you get more of the kind of pastry elements out of it. I'm not too sure about, as I say. But yeah. But the mouthfeel for me, I would describe this beer as being kind of bottom end of full bodied. It's not the thickest of sours that I've come across, like I say, but it's getting towards that. It's definitely getting towards there. The carbonation is very smooth. It's a mixture of oily and creamy, if you like. You know, you've got a bit of creaminess and thickness from the fruit and from the oats and the wheat in this one, but there is just a touch of oiliness, as I mentioned. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I think there's got to be about 20 or so IBUs in this beer, and I think some of it does come from that malty element that I've described in the beer as well, that slight spice that the beer has. So yeah, there's a bit of that going on in here, which is quite nice. So yeah, a little bit of dryness and bitterness in the malt base, but yeah, just a wee bit from the hoppy qualities as well. So maybe about 15-20 IBUs out of this beer. There is a wee bit of sweetness comes out of it later into the palate, and like I said, you've got a bit of tartness to this one. It's not the most tart beer that I've come across, but it's got a nice juiciness to it as well. So yeah, this is a really quirky one. I think it's fair to say this is the quirkiest I've had from Vault City thus far, but I've really enjoyed reviewing this one, and I'm going to enjoy sipping on this for the rest of the evening. I'll give a little bit to my dad to taste as well. So yeah, this has been a really interesting first Christmas Day beer review. I'm refilming this one for you on Christmas Eve, of course, and I don't know if I'll probably film the other one on Christmas lunchtime or something like that. But yeah, this is the first of my 2 Christmas Day 2020 beer reviews, and this one has been very, very nice actually. One of my favourite Scottish breweries, and they're quite rightly getting a lot of plaudits at the moment. So yeah, let's leave it there for this one. An awesome beer, lovely kind of big fruity juicy sour, this one. And the pastry elements are quite interesting as well. Is this my favourite beer that I've had from Vault City? I would still reserve that for the Iron Brew, but like I say, there's many more that we'll try from these guys over the next while. So and they've got a lot of different beers, you know, 70 different types of beer so far, which is pretty impressive. So there's a lot of variety to choose from these guys. But yeah, this one is a very interesting one. So yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Vault City Brewing. We will return to these guys very soon. As I said, 2 more beers to review in this round of Scottish beer reviews. But I hope you've enjoyed this one. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys later. The Double Crust Raspberry Pie 9% Imperial Pastry Sour from Vault City Brewing, originally from Edinburgh, but now brewing their beers up in Dundee here in Scotland. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Check out my social media, check out Vault City Brewing, and I wish you a very merry and safe Christmas 2020. Cheers.